So let's now answer the most important question. How would my profits change if with the same team I would be delivering the same work, however I would target completely different market within European Union? So, but first let's take a look of how these calculations work. So first, you entered your own values, your profits, your personal costs, and basically this is something that in combined way is your value added, right? And we know what is the value added, let's say, in country of Sweden. Now, because we know your personal costs for the exact work you delivered, and we know how many employees you have, we can actually do calculations. So if we know what is value added per employee in Sweden, and we know how many employees you have, and we know what are you paying for your personnel, then we can in a very simple way calculate what would be your profits if you sold all of what you sell with the same team in Sweden, in this example. So let's check it out practically and compare our example company in Poland with Swedish market, and let's find out how much profits would they make if they started to sell in Sweden. So we go back to our benchmarking tool in Excel, right? And we choose step 4, profits in specific country. And again, we are using inputs from the company in Poland. We know their annual profits, right? And this is number which is used in calculations here. So let's say we are comparing to Sweden. Let us find Sweden in the list. Here's Sweden. So my profits in my country is 25,000 euros before taxes, depreciation, amortization. However, if I sold everything that I sell in my country with same team in Sweden, I would make almost €500,000 profits. So it means I would make over 4,000 euros extra profits if I just sold in Europe. Percentage-wise, it's a huge increase, and in terms of times, your profit is increasing 18 times. So we don't talk about 20%, we don't talk about 15%, we talk about 18 times. That is huge. And even more if we look at how your profits would change over a period of 5 years, you would actually make extra 2 million euros in 5 years. And as usually, here is a graph comparing your profits right now in your own country and profits in selected country. So, what does it tell us? It tells us basically that if you are a company with such benchmarks in Poland, it would be totally unreasonable for you not to try to sell and market your services in other countries such as Sweden in this case. So what are some of implications of this calculation? So basically, in this example, we see that clearly that if we sold our services in Sweden, we would make multiple times more profits, and as just we calculated, it would mean 18 times more profits, and it would mean over 2 million extra profits for 5-people company in next 5 years, right? But we know clearly that you cannot really sell to Sweden without investment, right? However, knowing the massive profit opportunity, there's plenty of profits to invest, about, let's say, 10% of revenue in marketing. There is still a huge reserve to also provide some kind of discount to customer. Getting training to learn everything you need to know to start selling in international markets is also basically peanuts, and still you would be making much more money than any company in your local market. And this basically serves as the most compelling and truly practical business case for international expansion. You may see it being utterly unreasonable not to try to sell in other mature European markets. And if we change the perspective and turn the whole thing upside down, it also shows how large is your loss because you are not selling in international markets. So if we take a look at numbers again and we flip our perspective, actually then just by selling your services in Poland, you as a business owner are losing over 2 million euros in 5-year period. You are losing money, you are leaving money on the table. So I invite you not to leave this money on the table And I may be repeating myself here, but selling to international business buyers is easy to learn, and this is entirely doable. And I invite you to start thinking like investor in your own business. When you see that a single strategic change, basically starting selling in higher value market, could bring you in hundreds of thousands and millions of an additional profit, it probably changes your perspective quite a bit. You start thinking like investor. So if I could make 2 million more in 5 years in profits, what is that I could afford to invest right now to make it happen, right? And suddenly investments that once seemed expensive, like investing in learning, investing in marketing, sales, or new partnerships, become completely rational, right? You realize you can indeed afford to invest in business training to understand how to position yourself and how to sell internationally. Of course, you can invest in improving your language skills to improve customer communications. Of course, you can invest in building marketing and sales systems that allow you to reach buyers in those new markets, right? These are not costs anymore. This is entry ticket to multiple times higher profits. In the next module, starting international sales, we will talk exactly what you need to do, what you need to know, and how to start after you have identified opportunity.